Welcome back to All Things Money. I'm David Blain, and tonight we're talking about taxes. Before the break, we were talking a little bit about the income tax burden of your average married couple that's earning, less than or equal to about $60,000 a year, and how the tax burden for them very easily gets into the 30 to 40% range, and for a self-employed person, it easily gets into the 50% range. One thing that I wanted to cover before we move on to the next topic, a couple weeks ago we had a question from a viewer that was asking about what to do with their refund, and I suggested that the first thing they need to do is go down to their employer and adjust their withholdings because they don't want to get a refund. Ideally, at tax time, you would owe less than $1,000 because that's the threshold generally for not owing a penalty. And so if you can, you want to owe a little bit at tax time so that you keep your money as long as possible. Well, my advice is proving very true because recently there was an article on CNBC about the headline is Cash-Strapped States Delay Paying Income Tax Refunds. And a lot of states, and it specifically listed North Carolina, Alabama, and Hawaii, that's right, our own state of North Carolina, they are delaying people's refunds because why? Because simply they don't have the money. And so you've paid in your taxes all year, you file your income tax return and you say, hey, North Carolina, I paid you too much, I'd like my money back. And North Carolina and several other states are saying simply, well, we don't have your money, and so they're really slowing up the process of refunding. In North Carolina, the state posted a note on its website saying that, quote, the state continues to feel the effects of the slow economy, and the department is managing the distribution of refunds as a result. I don't know what managing the distribution of refunds means to you, but to me, it tells me that you're not going to see your refund anytime soon. A spokesperson for North Carolina said, we ended up not being right, and people got even more upset. You see in some states that they not only are they delaying the refunds because they don't have the money, but they've also cut the staff. And in Iowa, their spokesperson said it can take up to 16 weeks to get a refund if you file by paper. So once again, you want to make sure that your withholdings are set and that you are keeping as much of your own money as possible and not trying to get it back from the government. Okay, so speaking of withholding, there are a couple of things. I ran into a client, a lawyer that lives in Maryland, but her law firm, she's the owner of a law firm in Virginia. And Virginia recently enacted, in 2007, they enacted a new law that requires the law firm to withhold taxes on a non-resident owner. Typically, if you're an LLC or an S corporation, they're what's called pass-through entities, and they pass through the income and deductions to their owner. And the entity, the LLC, the business, does not pay tax itself. Well, effective in 2008, Virginia was requiring a 5% withholding for non-resident owners. And we're seeing this trend all across the country as states are becoming very aggressive about making businesses pay the taxes for their individual owners ahead of time. In Virginia's case, it happens to be 5%, and the business is required to send that into the state. If the individual that doesn't live in that state, they can always file an income tax return to try to get some of that back. But once again, the states are taking the money first and putting the burden on the individual to try to get it back. And to me, this is fundamentally wrong and against the principle of that the individual is required to file their taxes and pay the taxes, not the business that is a pass-through entity. And it's a very disturbing thing that's going on. In North Carolina, we have a similar rule. A lot of people may not understand this, but in a partnership, such as an LLC that's taxed as a partnership, the manager of that LLC is required to withhold and pay the tax on any non-resident partner. So let's say you have an auto repair business in North Carolina, and your brother-in-law who lives in Georgia is an owner of that business. He gave you the money to start it, and so he's a 50% owner. Well, a lot of people don't realize this, but in North Carolina, you are required to withhold and send the money to North Carolina on behalf of your brother-in-law. Of course, if you have a CPA, they probably know this, and this advice is not intended to replace personal advice from your CPA or tax advisor, but I'm just giving you some information that, number one, you may not be aware of that you're supposed to be doing, but number two, to kind of illustrate the effects of the ever-reaching tentacles of the government into people's lives. That traditionally, your brother-in-law in Georgia, if he got income from North Carolina, he would file his tax and pay his own tax. Well, now the states are increasingly pushing that burden onto the businesses. Just like years ago when Social Security and Medicare were first enacted, the individual actually paid it when they filed their income tax. It was not withheld from your pay. It was the individual's responsibility to do it. Well, somewhere in the 70s, they passed a law that mandated that the business withhold the money, send it to the IRS and Social Security Administration for the individual taxpayer. Once again, a very disturbing creep of the power of the states requiring businesses to do their own work. And of course, I don't want to get into it too much, but we're seeing this with the debate in healthcare, where they're going to mandate that businesses give workers health insurance. Once again, that is not the purpose of businesses. Are not in business to do the government's will and collect taxes and do all these sorts of things. They're in business for the shareholders to make a profit and to provide a job for the employees. And so it's just a little something to be aware of here at Tax Time. Well, that takes us to our next break. When we come back, we'll answer some viewers' email. In the interim, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at allthingsmoney@dlblain.com. We'll be right back.